I don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to have to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the masonry room, guys. So the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that I'm not at the cathedral and I'm not in the workshop. Where I am is in my house, in my library. Welcome. Don't have a bedroom, but I do have a library because I've got priorities. You can tell I'm at home because obviously I'm in my weekend overalls. So one of my most requested things on all of my social media platforms is book chat. People want some book recommendations for various topics pertaining to cathedral building or medieval masonry. So I've got a pile of books here that I think are my recommended reading list for all things to do with cathedral building. So let's get into it. So whenever people ask me for a book recommendation for cathedral building, the one that I always recommend first is this one. So this is How to Build a Cathedral by Malcolm Hislop. This is like the absolute Bible. It's so accessible. It's good for people who just have a vague interest or people who are like doing their masonry training or who are further on in their career. It's just a really concise book and it's so beautifully laid out. I mean, just like, oh, it's got fold outs. It's got fold outs, guys. It goes through like the whole process of cathedral building, construction methods, and just, yeah, everything to do with medieval cathedrals. So that is the one. Now, there was a time when this book was crazy expensive on Amazon because it's actually out of print, but I managed to get this secondhand online for like 15 quid. So if you look on eBay or on like secondhand book websites, you can get these like for still pretty cheap. So would recommend, number one recommendation. So we couldn't have a church or cathedral or Gothic architecture book chat without talking about Rice. So Matthew Rice, if you don't know, is an amazing illustrator. You should definitely check out his Instagram page, but he does beautiful architectural illustrations. The architectural primer, all forms of architecture, but the church primer in particular is brilliant. Look at, oh, it's so gorgeous. But it just goes through all the different types of architecture, all the things you might find in churches, beautiful illustrations, all labelled. So this is like a handy pocket guide for anyone who's interested in Gothic architecture. You can just pick it up and be like, oh, I wonder what that thing's called, and look for it in the primer. A good one, this is one that I recommend to people who are starting their stonemasonry training, who are wanting to work in heritage. If you're like brand new to it, if you don't have a degree in architecture or history or art history and you're coming into the wonderful world of Gothic architecture, brand new. These ones are just really accessible little pocket guides, how to read churches. There's a series of these. I think there's like how to read different types of buildings like castles and things like that, but the churches one is quite good. Again, it's like just all the different types of masonry elements or architectural elements kind of by era and what they're called and what they're for. So, and they're dinky, so little pocket guide is quite good. And then obviously Pevsner. We can't talk about historic architecture without mentioning Pevsner. Obviously there's the Pevsner county guides, which if you're interested into like the broader, I think I've got one up there somewhere. If you're into like the broader kind of history of your area in the UK, then obviously Pevsner's county guides, but he does do or has done these little ones, which again, just different aspects of architectural elements in ecclesiastical buildings, what they're called, what they do, what they're for, with some examples. So that's a solid one. Again, these secondhand on secondhand book websites, you can get them really cheap. Next, right, if you are interested in how the medieval masons built things, this dinky little, this is actually really good. So the cathedral builders of the Middle Ages. I have seen this book in a library in like a giant hardback edition, and I've never been able to find it. I can only find this little like reprint online. So if anyone spots the giant hardback of this, then like please let me know. But it's got some really good like illustrations of medieval masons doing their building and kind of examples from like manuscripts and medieval artwork and all that kind of stuff. So it's like focuses mostly on like the medieval building techniques. So that's quite cool for history nerds. If you want to deep dive more into the medieval or historic building methods of churches and cathedrals, then we've got these two here. So we've got the stone skeleton, and we've got building construction before mechanisation. So two kind of, not a lot of pictures, very, very wordy, kind of text heavy. If you're really heavily want to get into your construction techniques, historic construction techniques, then these two are the ones. Oh, I should have mentioned, I will list all of the titles and authors in the description of this video. So if you go to the description, I'll list all of them so you can find them later. Right, if you have done any masonry training or any kind of architectural training, you will have referenced this book. This book is like the architecture Bible. So we've got History of Architecture on the Comparative Method by Sir Banister Fletcher. So you don't even have to have looked at this book to recognise these illustrations. It's like any kind of architecture course or masonry course or construction course or history of architecture course will usually use Banister Fletcher's illustrations as examples. So this book is absolutely full of these really nice kind of pen and ink illustrations for every aspect of historic architecture. It's an old book, it's like 100 years old, but it was reprinted so consistently that you can just get these secondhand, online, really cheap. I think I've been given copies of these. I think I've got like 3 copies. So I've like distributed them at work, but these pop up in secondhand bookshops. They're just out there. There's so many of them. But yeah, for like illustrations and stuff, really, really good. And it's a really pretty book, isn't it? This is like my best one that I keep in the library. Right, next, history of architecture. If you are interested in history of particularly European, UK probably, Gothic architecture, we've got these 2 books. So this is kind of the early one. So this is early medieval architecture. So kind of Saxon, you're talking kind of Viking era into like Saxon and just around the Norman conquest. That's this one. So this is kind of pre what you think of as medieval when you think of like the post-Norman conquest Gothic medieval. This is kind of before that. And then obviously we've got medieval church architecture. Jon Cannon, he is like the absolute don of church architectural theory. This is the guy. So anything by Jon Cannon is usually pretty solid, but this is quite a little book, really accessible if you just want to learn. It's got photos of all the best cathedrals. Just want to learn all of the terms, a little bit of history about cathedral architecture. This is the one. He is the guy. Next. Right, we're on to the more practical building stage. So if you want to know how to work on cathedrals now, if you're getting into masonry or into stone conservation, these are the books. So if you've started your stonemasonry course, if you are learning to be a stonemason or just getting into it or have a passing interest, there are 2 absolute Bibles that everyone will recommend to you. Practical masonry and modern practical masonry. These are the ones. Every single masonry college has these kicking around. If you even mention to people that you're getting into masonry, someone will eventually give you one of these books. Obviously, practical masonry, it is what it says on the tin. This is the older one, practical masonry. Lots of illustrations and very wordy notes and very complicated illustrations as well. So stonemasons and bricklayers, practical masonry. And again, stonemasons and bricklayers, modern practical masonry. And this is the same. Lots of words, lots of technical drawings, very like intense masonry stuff. More of a reference book, definitely not one you can just sit down and read. So they're the ones. Quite a lot of people ask me for recommendations on geometry and like drawing and setting out. There isn't a good like one concise book that I can recommend for people who are stonemasons working on churches who want to do setting out. Like there's just lots of random little books, but one that I do recommend is Drawing Geometry, okay, by Jon Allen. Again, it's just a kind of a basic beginner's guide, but it just has all the kind of basic geometry stuff, which frankly, we probably should have done at school. I didn't. That kind of Euclidean geometry had sort of fallen by the wayside by the time I got to school. We were doing like just other stuff, just algebra and things like that, which is very useful, kids. Don't neglect your algebra. But this is that kind of practical Euclidean geometry that some of you might remember from school. I don't, so this came in really handy. And yeah, I just talked you through the process of that, and that's quite a handy one to just dip in and out of if I need to jog my memory on how to draw a certain thing. Right, let's talk about hot lime and restoration, modern restoration conservation. So a really good friend of mine who is an amazing conservation person recommended this to me. So the Stone Restoration Handbook. So if you work it with stone and you're starting to get into the more heritage side or the conservation side, this book is brilliant. Just goes through like just lime, like mortar repairs, lime washes, poultices, cleaning techniques, just everything to do with stone conservation and restoration is in this book, with case studies, with examples, loads of pictures. It's really accessible. So anyone that is like, you know, a mason or a bricklayer who is starting to do more heritage stuff, this is such a cool go-to book. And not enough people talk about this book. So this book is the one. And I've mentioned on here before, Nigel Copsey, who is like the king of hot lime, and he has done an amazing book. So we've got the hot mixed lime and traditional mortars. This is just everything to do with the wonderful, wonderful world of hot lime and how to use it and its uses and its history and practical applications. Again, loads of photos. If you're wanting to know more about hot lime mortars, this is the one. We're nearly done, I promise. I got 4 more. So a couple that are just like really nice little like satellite books to all of this are Matthew Champion's Medieval Graffiti. I've mentioned this a bunch of times before. So if you go into any church or cathedral and you just honestly, look at any surface in any church and cathedral and you will start to notice there is graffiti everywhere. And this book is kind of divides up into sections. So you've got kind of mason's marks, merchant's marks, technical drawings, like apotropæa, the kind of protection markings on church. This is a really good book, goes through all of those, got lots of photos, lots of examples. Yeah, get into looking at medieval graffiti, guys, because it's really cool. Obviously, I've got to mention my mate Andrew, who wrote this amazing book. So, church going, you should find Andrew on Instagram. He goes under Old Church Going on Instagram. And this is a really nice book to read. It's really like, I really like how Andrew writes. It's just so well written, and it kind of goes through aspects of the church from when you walk into the church, so the architecture, some of the history, so that when you are visiting medieval churches, you kind of have a new perspective on how to look at things. And it's just a really beautiful book, isn't it? Looks really nice on your bookshelf. And also, Andrew is a really good egg, so well worth supporting Andrew. 2 more books. Right, we've come to the elephant in the room. We need to talk about, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm gonna have to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the masonry room, guys. Yeah, I know. Here's the thing, I really like Pillars of the Earth. I think it's a nice book. It's nice, it's massive. I listened to the audiobook as well, so the audiobook's quite good. Public service announcement. If you know a stonemason, if you have met a stonemason, please don't ask them if they've read Pillars of the Earth, because odds are they've heard it 10 times that day already. Every single person I have ever met who I've told that I'm a stonemason, the first thing they say to me is, have you read Pillars of the Earth? Have you heard of Pillars of the Earth? It's fiction. This is one of only 2 fiction books I'm going to recommend to you guys. It's about a fictional cathedral builder, a stonemason, building a cathedral in a fictional place, but very heavily influenced by British cathedrals. Ken Follett's books are always really well researched, so it, like, from a stonemasonry perspective, it is very accurate, and I really like his descriptions of like the building process, and also like the narrative's really good. It's just, don't be put off by the fact that it's massive. I just think it's a really good book. I think I've been asked about 4,000 times if I've, like, have you read Pillars of the Earth? I think stonemasons can be divided up into 2 categories. People who have stonemasons who have read Pillars of the Earth and stonemasons who just out of spite refuse to read it because they've been asked so many times by so many people if they've read it that they're just like refusing to read it out of spite at this point. And I work with a few of those people who are just like, nope, won't read it, don't want it. But it is a good book, so do recommend. However, if you don't want to read Pillars of the Earth because it's massive, even though you should because it's great, then my last book recommendation is Ian Mortimer's Outcasts of Time. So this follows a guy who worked on Exeter Cathedral in I think it was the 14th century, maybe 15th century, but a guy who's basically a stonemason who worked on the cathedral, who then kind of ends up having to live one day in every 100 years going forward in time. So he'll like live a day in the 14th century, then a day in the 15th century, then a day in the 16th century. And it's just a really fun narrative and really like fun way of looking at like the passage of time and how history develops. It goes right up to like the 1940s, I think. It's been a couple of years since I read this, but it's from his perspective, and I like the way he sees the cathedral evolving over those like decades and centuries. So he's kind of seeing his cathedral and his work like aging and how it's being interpreted, but also his perspective on like the passage of time. So that's quite a nice book for that. That's my book recommendations. I've got to put all of these back on my shelves now. If you made it this far, well done, good work. I've only really been doing this YouTube thing properly for a couple of months, and everyone has been really nice. I've had some really lovely comments from people. I am quite new to this, so it's all still a bit janky. I haven't quite figured out the editing thing. But I do really appreciate everyone following me and leaving lots of comments. If there's anything you want me to make a video about in particular, pertaining to Cathedral World or Masonry World, then let me know. A lot of people have asked if I can just like set my phone up in the workshop and just film myself carving for like an hour at a time. I don't think you guys realise how boring that is. It's really boring. Like, so many people ask to just watch me carving in real time. But I think that's really boring. But I mean, if you want me to do that, I'll do that. This is the bit where I think I'm supposed to ask you guys to like and subscribe. So if you like my videos and you want to subscribe, that'd be awesome. I'd super appreciate it. This is also the bit where I'd normally say, okay, let's go to work. But as you can see, I'm not at work today because I'm going to Hastings. So, okay, let's go to Hastings.